don't get the sheet below iliac crest. Otherwise, it keeps falling in, right? The whole granny pandy syndrome, really a problem. So QL, so important with low back, right? When people lean over and put their low back out, it's usually QL and upper glutes. So QL looks like a little tiny, I call the rhomboids the Christmas tree of the upper back, and the QL the Christmas tree of the lower back. So the fibers run down and inferior and lateral, okay? And the outer fibers attach to the 12th rib. Some of these inner fibers actually attach to the TPs. And then it comes down and attaches to iliac crest. So what we're really accessing is this outer edge of the muscle. But we're talking about her iliac crest is here. You see how small that is? Like, and my fingers are up against her 12th rib, right? So if somebody turns this way and leans, and they've got 100 pounds in their arms out here, the force down into this muscle to lift torso and all that back up is significant. I want to say it turns into like 300-400 pounds. It really does multiply up quickly the further away from your body you are, right? So I'm always talking to people about, you know, this whole lifting thing. We do this for a reason, right? And if you're gonna lift this way, hinge at your hips, and I wouldn't recommend being way out there picking something up, but if you hinge at your hips, because you can't, because I don't know, it's not way down on the floor and you can't do this to get to it, be even, or don't be twisted, right? The minute you twist, you put all the load onto one side, versus at least here you're using both muscles. If I had something on a table.
I have a quick question. When you said someone puts their back out, you said it's QL and
Upper glutes a lot of the time.
upper
are
glutes.
involved.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a woman, went through PT, got steroid shots. Doc finally sent her to me one session. And it was primarily upper glutes, but they were treating her back. Yeah. At that point, I think her QL had healed itself. All right. So this says fist as one of the tools I'm using. So sometimes I'll do just some warm up with just this up and over, right? But I'm not getting to QL really because there's only this much space for me to get in. So my knuckles are on top of bone on both sides. So this is just really warming up the outer layers if I do it, okay? So here, if I'm flat, I'm going on erector, right? So you need to be at somewhat of an angle, and really you can see erector's never underneath my arm. To get to those outer fibers, really you're gonna come in and your target is here. Which I tell people, come to the edge of your erectors and go about halfway down to the table and then come back in. Right. If somebody's too narrow for me to get my blade in, and everybody's blade's different, and everybody that's on the table is different, I'm going to use reinforced fingertips to get in here and do compressions to loosen things up, and then I'm still going to do those 3 points that I'm about to show you with my elbow. So forearm here, that puts the center about here, okay? And because this is on a little bit of an angle, I'm gonna come in on a bit of a 45 to get to it. So point right in the middle, or should you tell me if it's too much? You want more?
I can have a bit more.
Okay. How's that?
It's like 7.
Okay. So all I did, peeps, is I bent my front knee a little and let my hips drop forward, and I gave her a little more of my weight. This hand's here, but it's not holding me up. Okay. So. All right. So I'm going to hit 3 points. I'm going to hit the point in the middle. I'm going to aim for the attachment here at the edge of the erectors, right at 12th rib, and then I'm going to come down to the attachment on the iliac crest first point. Now I'm going to rotate a little towards her opposite shoulder, move up. My intention is kind of to hook up and under 12th rib, but bone on bone here is not what you're going for. You're going for the muscle attachment. What do you got for me, Arsha?
Like 5,
Okay.
6, 7.
So when you got a really small point, tiny movements can make a difference. I mean, every scale is different too. You have somebody with a really high pain tolerance, and she would have gone from 5 to 5.5 to 6 to 6.5 for what I just did, right? I would have had to drop more to get a full point on her. But right. Usually, the top or the bottom point are the ones that are the most tender. And if you can't find it, you can just run your fingers along that crest above it, not along it. And you'll come down, and then at a certain point, you'll feel like you drop off the cliff. You're like, okay, that's where the edge is. And sometimes it's so tender, they're like, oh yeah, that's it. What do you got there? Or does that feel like the right spot?
Yes.
So if they're telling you got a lot of bone on bone, just rotate so that you're more cross to the far wall as opposed to downward or upward, as the case may be. And I'm going to work a lot more on things that affect pelvic tilt than I am going to work here if they just put their back out. Okay. If they come in and it's screaming at them, I might start them face down with a hot towel on it first. But I'm going to spend a lot more time on glutes, a little bit more on back, and then things in the front like adductors and psoas, because this is tight because we are down and forward people. If they're not in a lot of pain, I will start them on their back with a good bolster under their knees, maybe the really big one, just to take the pressure and the stress off their back because it's still hurting. And then turn them over and finish with a lot of glute work, a little bit of this, some back work. Hamstrings have never solved sciatica, chronic low back pain, or this situation for me. I spend very little time in hamstrings when it comes to back stuff. I check in, but I don't spend a ton of time there. All right, erectors and rhomboids. This work for me now is kind of warming up because what I do a lot of times is you saw me, I put oil here, right? So when people run cold, the minute we put oil on, right, they get cool. So I start my back work with this, because I'm usually starting face up, right? So this isn't the opening of my massage. This is the opening of my massage. I actually do glutes and legs, and then I come up and do the back. So I will start with this, and that way she's not going to get cold if she runs cold. And I'll do both low back, and then I will start to go up one side, kind of warm up and get a sense of what's here. I do my arm work, and then I come back in and I finish my massage with this and a hot towel. So it's just the way I do things. All right, so erectors and rhomboids. I'm not gonna, there's not a lot that's new in the world with this, but the more weight, the more you want to get in, the more you got to get yourself up and over, and the slower you're gonna go. Okay. And I'll usually run a couple passes up the erectors, and notice how I'm catching levator scap here. I hate it when people stop short on me, right? And come off, like I've got somebody who does this. And I'm like, no, keep going. Okay.
Do you educate them right away when you're laying on the table?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends. I'll run a lineup where I'll come right next to the scap, a little wider at the top half of the stroke, so I can get a sense of how many railroad tracks I have to get rid of before the end of the session. And I'll often just do some warm up here along lat and teres because I'm about to go out into my arm work. But you can, this is a nice place for you to like stretch your back, hang your neck, right? Kind of open up things that are tightening up because you're working. Do we have crossed tables? Oh, rhomboids across the tables. Okay. So normally what I would do is I'd walk around there because I'm working on this rhomboid, but I'm going to show it to you opposite. Okay. And that go on your low back. Can it? Go on your low back. Okay. Drop the elbow as much as you can. So one thing I do to open the rhomboids, I wouldn't call it a deep tissue move, it's more of a stretch, is flat fist. It's okay if there's wrinkles here. Everybody tries to do this like this because I tell you to have a, don't. There's always exceptions. You can wrinkle your wrist on this one. So all I'm going to do is with the heel of my hand and the flats of my knuckles, flats of my fingers, I'm just going to lean in a little bit. This just keeps me from popping over. My intention is that. My intention isn't go down. Right, because there's ribs right there. And I usually hit 2 spots. I start with the bottom because if I'm going to kind of get up and under this, this is where it's going to happen. My fingertips are pressing into my hand. There's a bit of a burn in my knuckles. If that's a problem, if you have any kind of arthritis and that's painful, don't do it. And then I'll do another one up higher. And a lot of people you can't get in up higher, so I'll kind of just come up against it and I'll use this to keep me from popping up and over and just hang out and let them breathe. How does it feel, Arsha?
Good.
Yeah, they like it. Plus it gets rid of all these layers, so now I can, when I come back from my arm, I can really dive deep faster. So it's an efficiency thing for me too. So I already did a little warm up here, but if I didn't, I might do some half strokes just to kind of get some warm up going through here. And now, flats of my fist. Again, this is a little more warm up, not so pokey. Yeah. So I'm starting on the scap, but I'm leaning in more as I come off the scap, because I'm trying to get into everything that's just off the side of the scap. And now I'm going to knuckle up. Give me a number.
6.
This can be very, very tender. So if you haven't done this on people before, go in easy the first time.
And is this primarily the lats and the teres?
Yeah. So you've got teres major, teres minor coming off the side of the lat here. Coming off the side of the scapula, and lats, and then you're going to run into your tricep head up near the top. All right, so support, usually it's, again, my third knuckles that are making contact with the tighter spots. Sometimes I can get a tight spot under each of my third knuckles. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm only really, one of them is doing most of the work, and the other hand's just stabilizing for me.
Puppy.
Good or bad?
Oh,
no, we got the puppy.
Hi, Bobby. How are you?
So sorry.
That's okay. It makes everybody happy.
Yes, it does.
She's like, oh,
I'll let her touch this one.
All right, so, and infraspinatus is coming off here too. And I am finding right now just a ton of people needing really good infraspinatus work. So, and we're not covering that today, but you're catching some of it coming off here near teres minor at the top of the scapula. All right, and I'm just going to roll into my tricep and posterior delt. So, you know, I'm kind of doing this kind of motion anyway. So this is my up and over. And I'm doing this at a probably more of a firm on her, but like, I mean, I could drop a ton of weight and go really slow and be ripping through here. You got some athletes that probably could take all of your body weight doing this and love you. Right? If you're not loving the whole up and over thing, you could get behind it. No reason you can't get behind it, right? And if I want to go towards the heart, I can go towards the heart. Now for deltoid, I'm going to cross fiber towards the feet. Notice how That's gonna keep the deltoid under my hand. If I'm going this way, it's gonna roll out from under my hand. And I'm more on tricep. So can you cross fiber them both directions? Of course you can, but normally, unless I'm doing some really specific work in one area, this is what I'm doing for deltoid. Getting some cross fiber action. And it feels really good usually. And tricep, they are gonna love you if you have not been doing cross fiber, especially right above the elbow, just like those quads just above the knee, right? Tricep 3 heads all coming together at the elbow. So right here, it's pretty yummy if you don't hurt them. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
It's beautiful.
Feel good?
Yeah.
So for my deltoid, if I was just doing it, I'm gonna use my left hand. Fits right in, covers just my deltoid. Okay? If I wanna do my tricep, I'm gonna use my right hand. Right, but I was just covering all the bases here. Why not be efficient, right? Warm up and get in deeper. And of course, I mean, past this, if there's some ropey knot in the deltoid, then I'm gonna like hang out. And I'm gonna get more pokey, get more specific, open the spaghetti, all stuck together. Alright. Alright, now here comes the really good stuff that you all are using your fingers in all the time. Not that you're not doing this too, but right? Alright. Wrist flexors. Hello. No more fingers. No more thumbs. No more little stuff. Okay, you don't like my up and over? Get behind it. If they're a massage therapist, go right out here where those flexors attach and hang out. Less? You want less, Arthur? Are you good?
You can go with 50.
Oh. Good?
I know, I'm
Yes.
so excited, oh my gosh.
I would have never thought to use my elbow in their forearms.
Yeah, I'm not all the way up on my elbow. I'm on about an inch of my blade, but yeah, you can. Yeah, big thick guys. Not a problem. Right? Okay.
A woman might punch me.
Yeah, well, depends. So cross fiber. Right. We did this on adductors. We did this on quads. Why can't we do this here? This is the same cross fiber. I just turned around. Right, you can go up. You can use your fist. Look at this. You guys have graduated. Every tool, any place it works. Right? You can use your knuckles. Yeah? I just told you every tool I have on a forearm. Right? Okay? So, hands. Guys with big hands. Hello. Fists, knuckles into thenar eminence. Way easier than doing this. Okay? Knuckles into hypothenar eminence. Knuckles into the base of each finger in the pad. That looks a lot like when I stuck my elbow into somebody's foot, right?
And you use like the hip brace kind of movement to get in there?
No,
Or just
I'm just leaning. I mean, it's her. It's not some big thick guy, right? But even if I'm here and I stack up and just drop my weight, right? Yeah, no, because hip brace is usually when I'm coming in from the side. That's not going to do me a lot of good. But similar bracing, right? I'm stacked up. I'm kind of letting this drop up so the ligaments are holding it even now. So I'm not pushing it down. I don't need, and I'm short because this is a better position anyway.
Cool.
Right, but you can knuckle all through the hand this way. You can elbow all through the hand this way, okay? If it's really thick or your table's too high, so you can't get yourself here because your table's up here and that person, right? Okay? And I'm going to show you hand stuff when she's face up, when not somebody else is face up this afternoon. I will show you other hand stuff for when they're face up. But start thinking, I haven't lifted an arm to do work face up in 15, 20 years. Okay? It's work. I'm lazy. I don't want to work. I want to make people feel better and not work.
So this is great carpal tunnel work.
Yeah, I mean, you can get in to all this, you know, without using your thumbs. However you need to do it, you know. I have a therapist who like drags across these bones in my wrist when she does this work, and it feels terrible though. So like if you're sliding down, I wouldn't be like really deep and like slide over from the wrist to the hand. I think bone on bone is kind of nasty there. And then again, somebody may love it. They're not me. It's okay, right? All right. Oh, I can go back under there. Thank you, ma'am. All right, so the back work at the end of this is a time for you to really practice your palpation skills with things you don't normally use. If that's your knuckles or your elbow or whatever it is, come back in, do your middle erector and rhomboid and upper trap work, and find the knots, find the ropey bands. So there's an L brace there. So again, if you feel like you're being slippery, but you want to use an elbow on a ropey band, see that ropey band right there? And you feel like you keep slipping off, give yourself an L brace. And then just try and feel, and you know, do it at medium if you're not doing it well, or do it at light if you're not, right? Don't try and do it deep, 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 but just feel for that band and see if you can stay on it. Now, some of these can be tricky, so sometimes I will use fingers to kind of just push them towards the spine so that I can stay on them, like this. Right? That's also a way just so that you know where you are and you can feel them. But this one's broad enough that when you get to the point that you can feel stuff with your elbow, and notice how much I slowed down, right? Because it's like a greased pencil. It's kind of doing this, right? When I'm on top of it. But you can get to the point where you just stay on it. You good, Ursha?
Yeah.
She could take more pressure here, but I don't want to slip off of it. Right. Come in, find those ropey bands. The little lines that go from lower scap in towards the spine are big-breasted women compensating for breast tissue. This is where we hold on to things in the front that are heavy. Okay, so if you've got big-breasted women, getting in and finding those lines and just really working them is helpful. But we all know what's in here, right? Knots, bands, everything. So play with finding stuff and doing work on it, whatever the work seems it needs. If it's long and ropey, try and run it or do some cross fiber. If it's a knot, sit on it. Play with your blade, different flat, pointy, elbow, you know, an inch of your blade, 2 inches of your blade, and talk to your partner and get feedback. Okay? Use tools that you don't usually use. And you can find stuff with your thumbs, right? And then come back in with your tool, see how it feels, see if you can find the same thing that you can very easily visualize when you find it with your thumbs and feel it with your thumbs. Okay? All right. Question?
Do you ever use a forearm on the opposite side of the back?
I generally don't work cross table because it's not, there's no way to go really deep cross table. So, and